where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sue Rose Minahan and host of Talk Cosmos, an astrological conversation that's been going on since 2018 every week. And we have 3 panels. Today, I'm really glad that we're returning with Cosmic Collaboration, which started off the whole panel idea. Life evolves. I don't know about all of you, but it certainly feels very intense that way sometimes. Just when you think it's together, it's like, holy mackerel, another issue in life. Today is, I have to be reminded, is July 18th, 2021. Very special day, as always it is. And we are talking about the United States of America. It has a moon, just like every chart does. It's in Aquarius, and we're at that balsamic point. We're going to explain, just to get us all on the same page, what these terms mean. But it is a progressed moon. It's a matter of measurement. You take a day per year. And the moon, because it's the fastest orbiting planetary object in our solar system, and we call it a luminary, because it doesn't emit light, it reflects light. But the moon goes through a sign every 2.5 days. Compared to even Mercury, that takes it takes a long time. I'm thinking 16 days, I think. But at any rate, the point being that this progression is also a cycle. There's many cycles. Astrology is cycles. We look at them, we reflect on them, we compare them, introspect, all this different methods. And so the point is that it takes 28 years for this progressed moon to go through each sign. We're at the very tail end of it, the balsamic, and we'll explain that a little bit further. So our title is the USA Progressed Moon, and who is our family? That could be one of the driving elements as we go through our potpourri of talking, which we do with this wonderful panel that I have of really great astrologers. So with no more ado, we now are ready for the Cosmic Collaboration panel.
Investigating the deeper archetypal questions related to understanding astrological energetic aspects for growth patterns to unify mind, body, spirit, and emotions, this is your Cosmic Collaboration panel.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals, and nature.
I'm Susie Kerr-Wright, astrologer, certified psychic medium, tarot reader, life coach, and Reiki master. I love to bring what I call cosmic common sense to the world through private sessions as well as all types of media. My work has been published in Chewy.com, Brides Magazine, Good Housekeeping, Cosmopolitan, Elle, Bustle, and more. And I'm a regular guest on Today in Nashville. I've had my own radio shows, and I was the weekly on-air astrologer for WSCA-FM. And I love to teach astrology and psychic development.
And I'm Amanda Pierce, a soul-centered astrologer, astrological consultant, and empowerment-based meditation teacher. I have a BA in psychology, I'm a wellness enthusiast with a passion for healthy eating, and I enjoy creating new realities and shifting old paradigms.
And like the Sufi poet Rumi says, you are the entire ocean in a drop. Yes, it's actually a larger, where he reflects on that. But what a wonderful way to always begin here with wonderful Amanda and Susie and myself. So to discuss just a little bit, I had explained that the progressed moon is this cycle. It goes in a sign, which I perhaps didn't explain, that it's in 2.5 years of a cycle, and maybe I didn't. So it's a 27 when it finally returns back, which it is. It's in Aquarius. So I think we're going to mention what the phases are, and also a little bit more about the progressed moon. And if I remember in our little previous checkup that Susie, you were going to identify some of the foundational concepts of that. Am I right?
Yeah. For those of you that don't really know astrology well,
or even if we do,
or even if you do, yeah. This is just like a kind of a basic rundown of like the moon phases and what they feel, and it's related to planting, of course, because that is that's what for
great analogy.
Millennia, everybody's been, planting by the moon, right? So if you think of life, things in your life, events in your life, whatever it is that you're doing, as the seed that you're planting on the new moon, that's where you plant it. Everything goes underground at that point on a new moon, and life begins in a place that you can't see. Events begin in a way that you can't necessarily see them. The crescent moon is the next phase, and that's about germination and sprouting. So when you plant a little herb garden, you want to get the seedlings, put them in your kitchen or whatever, and let them germinate a little bit, and before you take them outside and let them start fending for themselves. The first quarter moon is where the seedling becomes the plant. It becomes a stronger plant. I'm just going to run through these very quickly. So if you want me to elaborate on anything, just let me know. Yeah.
You might say, thank you so much for this, but astrologically there is certain angles. So in other words, the germination would be a sextile, 60 degrees, and then the first quarter is, and so you're doing beautifully, but if we
okay,
since you
asked,
good.
And so we at the crescent moon, the first quarter is when the growth spurts happen. The gibbous moon is where the buds form and the fruit starts to grow, and that would be Sue, did you want to offer that?
No.
Okay.
Well, the first quarter we'll go back to, since now we are understanding how we're going to proceed, is like 90 degrees, and that's at tension. And it is amazing that there's always in this energetic development, it seems, like you said, you begin this I love the fact that you said that it was where you can't see it, reminding us of this, because sometimes in this world we think, we plant it, we know what it's going to become, but really, as far as in this truth of it, we're not sure how it's going to develop, whether all our promises and wishes are going to develop, right?
Yeah, and so much, like there's a certain amount of faith that's required to get through that period of time, right? So then, as and then a square, of course, is always a challenge where we grow, right? So it can be difficult, but it's worth it. It's where the buds begin,
growth
right?
spurt.
So
and in fact, I have a dear friend who's leaving the island here and left me her orchids. Now, I'm not a big orchid farmer. I love to garden, and I say farmer because I'm used to drought, I'm used to this, but orchids have their own temperament and they need indirect light. So here I think I'm at a square point with these poor orchids, because I'm thinking, am I going to get them in the right indirect light or the right amount of water? We'll find out. So I think that's an element of it may not get past that little tension conflict, but hopefully yes.
Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just have to keep going back and relearning the lessons. Squares are so important. They are just so important. I have a lot of them in my chart, so I'm very familiar with squares.
They can be good resolution.
Even you seemingly fail, you're learning something, and sometimes when you quote unquote fail, it's the best learning.
Beautiful. It's so true. In fact, I'm not always so quick on the draw to recognize that. I have to admit, I get a little caught up with my emotional business because we're talking moon too, and it is emotion. But later I'll go, well, that person was a good avatar for my change.
Exactly.
Well, just always, one of the things that I've been repeating a lot lately, so I must need to remember this myself, is that things happen for us, not to us. So
Yes.
remember that. It's
I'm
like,
going to write that down.
okay.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it seems to be a mantra in my life right now. I'm hearing that a lot. I'm seeing it. I'm feeling it. So,
well, go back to the gibbous. Go back to the gibbous, because
yeah.
this is important. And gibbous, we might say, is an old terminology of where it's still developing. Somehow I have to memorize that term. It's never, gibbous is not something we use in any other context, unless one of you are familiar, except astrology. It must have, yeah.
Yeah. And so the gibbous is, it's kind of like, it's where things become perfected, I guess, as they're going to be. And, it's interesting because people that are born under gibbous moons are always questioning. They're always questioning and trying to be precise about certain things. And so I was actually born under a gibbous moon, so you got me there again.
Oh, well, Susie, going back to my example with these dear little orchids that are blooming, if maybe that's the deal, if it continues that process of trying to figure out how to resolve something.
It's like, I'm going to be this, but what am I going to be? A big this, a little this, and over here this, a little slightly different this is, it's
because your experience has grown from the seed part where you really hadn't noticed what was happening. So now it is that further development. I mean, the leaves are either yellow or else they're strong and healthy. And if they're yellow, is that too much water, not enough water? There's all these elements.
So yeah, lots of, we do a whole show just about this. So,
well, it's okay. We are in Cancer right now, and it is still, we're just on the cusp, but yes, the moon is ruling Cancer, so we're not too far off. Go ahead.
So the next phase, of course, is the full moon, and that's when we get to see the results. We get to its maturity. Everything is ripened and it's blooming, and you're like, okay, this was supposed to be a red thingy majiggy, but it's a green thingy majiggy. Okay, and you can go back and try and plant a red thingy majiggy, or you can, just love on the green thing and make more of those. But it's a time where you get to see the results of things.
Or it's perfect. Maybe could it be just what you
always
hoped?
Perfect.
It was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to bring this to the fair and we're going to win. I remember, the county fair.
Well, full moon people are just so fascinating to me because their energy is. I know we're not going to talk about.
No, this is good. This is good. Like Amanda said, we'll go with the flow.
I know so many of them, and they're just, they're amazing people because they're catalysts. They are such catalysts for others because they reflect back onto people. They reflect back onto people.
Oh, yeah.
And so when you meet a full moon person, you're going to become aware of things about yourself without them doing anything necessarily or saying anything, and that's why, I jokingly say, this is jokingly, that full moon people, you either love them or you hate them. Because,
well, I can think of some examples where this
is
the truth. This is the truth. We'll just keep that axiom and people can reflect, right? Reflect on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very good.
So,
so now we're tipping
Now we're going to the other side of things, right? So everything is, the harvest has happened. So now what's happening is we're in the disseminating phase. We come to the point where the fruit falls, the seeds drop, the flowers fade, and it's kind of a closing in. It's kind of you're beginning the wrap up, because this is going to lead to what we're talking about with the US moon here. You're beginning the wrap up. Okay. And so the third quarter is where the next phase would be where the leaves mature and they start to change color. If you're, just again, talking about plants, it's, sometimes this is a period of time in your life when you're in your third quarter moon where you may have to walk away from things that you that have been in your life for a long time. It's a letting go. It's a letting go, and sometimes that can be absolutely beautiful. If you've ever been to New England during leaf peeping season, but there's always this kind of melancholy around it with that third quarter moon, and then finally the balsamic moon, and this is where the leaves fall. The plant either dies naturally or withdraws. And it's a very hermit-like period of time where you go inward. Balsamic people are very introspective. People that are born under balsamic moons, they can be loners. They can, they're a lot of times they're a little bit behind the curve, in their lives. They achieve their greatness later in life. They can be very quiet. So it's that, it's that time to reflect, and this is where we are as a country right now.
We are. Thank you, Susie, because here I'm echoing. I think that'll get. It'll be next year. Why am I echoing? Okay, it'll be next year that we are going to have this solidified. I think it was October 12th, 2022. So we have a year in that whole, because in Aquarius, it's a 2.5 year sign. And you know what I was noticing? I was trying to reflect. If it's, oh no, maybe I'm wrong about that. Okay, never mind of that little math business I did really quick. Forget
God,
it.
Don't do math.
Yeah, no, I know. It was like, thank you, we're not doing math too. So yes, so back to this thought about the balsamic, because naturally, as it is, it's paralleling our pandemic experience and reflecting. So it's natural. And let's talk, I know, Amanda, let's see. So the very fact of what progressed, I think we're going to talk about Moon in Aquarius. Is that it? We're going to talk about, because it's networking right off the bat. Yes. Okay. Because both of you have Moon in Aquarius. And I have very apt things in Aquarius myself. I have a planet, so I mean, it's very prominent. But yes. What is Aquarius in Moon? I know it's networking. I know a lot more, but let's hear. I'll hear it.
Well, okay. So Moon in Aquarius, I mean, where to start? I think the biggest thing, and this very much applies to the United States Moon, is that desire and emotional need to have freedom. So Aquarius it's got to have its space. It's got to have its freedom to think how it wants, to do as it pleases, whatever's correct and authentic for itself, because it has its own unique just energy, and it's not really necessarily going to go with what everybody else wants. That said, Aquarius is ruled by both Saturn and Uranus. So in some ways, it can be very Saturnian, which we don't always think of with Aquarius. So it can be really solid, and oftentimes it can stick with the cultural norms from a thought perspective. So thinking, one of the shadow sides of Aquarius is that thinking can get rigid and you have to think the same as everybody else. And I think we're seeing a lot of that coming up right now in the US. And we have different groups that are thinking their way is the right way. And it's kind of coming to a head at this point.
I love, Amanda, that you said this about groups, because it is community. Aquarius wants like-minded. It is the 11th sign, and by that development, it's very much wanting to elevate the purpose of its group. But it can get, like it perhaps indicated when I see, narrowing, like, who is my group? So therefore, it can begin. We're getting combative, which Aquarius doesn't like to do, but it will defend its thoughts.
Yeah, it's a fixed sign, so it's not afraid to stand its ground. That's for sure.
Yeah, it has all the debate issues. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Susie, I think I hear you burbling there. Have something no,
I
you
was
didn't.
burbling. No,
Yeah. The thoughts burbling.
I was just
Okay.
agreeing. Yep.
Yeah, so going back to the moon itself, the moon for a mundane, which we're talking about in the United States, is the public. So as a group, it is the public. It is emotional, of course. It's our opinions. It's about family and home. I mean, there's many more, but our security. And so I think there is a lot involved with the military in this regard when it comes to the public, with the moon for a mundane, for the group, the large group. Because, like Rumi said, every drop makes the ocean, and every drop in the ocean is us. So we're all a collective whole here. And it's our safety, but it's the masses of the whole. It also involves women, which, the moon is often, there's been often with the woman but for mundane, I think it is. And water, goodness knows we have too much or too little. It's like, how extreme can it get? Which really, when it comes to Aquarius, we know as evolutionary from that aspect. Amanda and I have focused on the evolutionary, although we embrace much more to say eclectic. But the fact is that it can, because of sudden changes, have trauma. So that's what I'm saying. We have too much, too little. It's almost an indication. And its ruler, just if we go into astrology, what is guiding that path is that planet of Uranus that breaks the pattern. So it's that's a great thing. It's innovative and genius-like. There's a lot of innovation in the United States. A lot of communication.
Yes. Yeah, and that's one of the things where, so with the moon's progression, it's an evolution on the emotional level. And so we're coming all the way around full circle back to our natal position. And here we are back in Aquarius, and we're seeing things like the public is now going up into space. We've got Jeff Bezos and who's the other guy?
Musk.
Yes, Elon Musk. Thank you.
And
that's like the moon as the public in mundane, literally going to space. So really interesting things like that.
Oh, I've got goosebumps all over my body.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in the vaccine technology, that's like the United States was definitely the forefront of that. And so that's all playing into it. So Susie, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to I was a little bit behind. If you think about like what has America been to this world, it's like there's this emotional connection that people have with us as like this, we've all heard that term, the shining city on the hill kind of thing,
emotional caregiver.
And emotional, that caregiver and that emotional representation. I think maybe that's more what I want to say, is the emotional representation of freedom, because freedom for everyone is different. And I never really thought about that. That was a shower thought I had this morning. I was like,
that's so true.
What is freedom? Why are we fighting? Everybody wants to be free. And I'm like, oh, what you think is freedom is different than what I think is freedom. And here we are.
And how well does that fit into the Aquarius archetype too? Aquarius, it's so it's just so individuated.
We want you to be free, so do what we say.
It's individualistic, but it's individualistic. Because I think that's the big code word for the 11th sign. For Aquarian is by that time, we've gone through our personal all the way through the bottom hemisphere in astrology as we represent it. And then on the upper hemisphere, this is like 180 degrees. And I know I'm throwing out some astrology, which astrologers understand. But the point is, by the time we're almost concluded and the humanity is individualized. It's like authentic, like you were talking about. Yeah, I love that. A shower awareness of freedom. Yeah.
It's like, my best ideas in there. I need to keep some sort of recorder because as soon as I'm out, I forget usually. But I remember that one.
In the chart, okay, that's because this really ties together with the inclusiveness and Neptune. I was thinking of the shower because another part of this chart is that our natal Neptune, the planet that represents the energies outside of our control, is in opposition of the one transiting right now. So the awareness of stepping aside and maybe seeing it, and it's from that viewpoint of me versus that. And so the shower would represent and inclusiveness. So who is our family? Who is this? Who is our new network of our like-minded group? And I pray, I will say this, that we can get beyond what the appearance is into the soul of what is, the value. So I will state that here.
Well, and I was reading a book by Patricia Walsh, Understanding Karmic Complexes, and she was talking about how joining a group is it's Aquarian, not just because of community, but also because groups differentiate us from the whole. And so in a way, it's a form of rebelling from that wholeness or that oneness, which is a way to individuate in an Aquarian way.
Well, that so reminds me of
Beautiful.
Back in the days, you look at the generations and the way they dress and the way they connect with music and stuff. It's there's this kind of irony. I don't know if that's the right word to use of, they I'm just thinking about too back in my punk days, I was I dressed like a punk. I wore the leather jacket. I wore the spikes. I was so
I'm different because,
so
but then
was everybody else that was into punk rock music. And I'm
beautiful.
So there was a difference, and we were rebelling, but then after a while it was everybody was doing that. And then at that point, it became kind of meaningless or less meaningful, I guess. And so there's that adjustment period that has to happen where it's okay, as soon as the group gets too big, something has to shift.
Yeah,
thank you.
It's kind of like that. It's the difference between kind of Aquarius and Capricorn. And how there's a fine line between being in the group or being part of the cultural norm and not being. And so Aquarius is kind of it's kind of doing a little bit of both, and it's kind of like a dance back and forth in a way.
Gorgeous. We are going to return on this note. This is Cosmic Collaboration Panel, returning with Amanda Pierce of Seattle and Susie Wright of Nashville, Tennessee, and myself, Sue Rose Minahan of Kailua Kona. And we'll be back talking about the USA progressed moon and who is our family and everything else. And it's in Aquarius. Thank you. Till again. Thank you. While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. Currently, we are in the period of Cancer. By leaving a cycle based on connecting mental communication to the external, the energy of Cancer involves emotions, which create our personal story through our emotional associations and attachments. As a cardinal water sign that is nurturing, Cancer needs to process emotions in one's own internal rhythm of cycles in order to complete an evolution.
Hi, I'm Dr. Laura Todd. Please join me for an 8-week online course in personal mythology. In this course, we will explore some of the myths, the stories that shape who we are and how we walk through the world. Contrary to popular belief, a myth is not a falsehood, but rather a story that holds universal and collective truths. They are the stories woven through time, tethering us to our known ancestors and beyond. Using experiential exercises and reflective writing assignments, in this course you will come to know yourself in a new way. When you understand the story you are living, you can more consciously direct the narrative of your life. This class will be taught in an online platform, as well as over 3 Zoom calls. Class starts July 19th. For more information or to register, please go to my website, mythicsky.com.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
This is Susie Kerr-Wright, astrologer and psychic medium, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we discuss the meaning of our roots in the stars.
Alternative Talk 1150. It's good for what ails you. This statement has not been evaluated by the FDA.
Oh, hello, and thank you. Isn't that always extraordinary? I want to pick up on this thought. I know Laura Tad, Dr. Tad, is part of the Planet Buzz, and tomorrow is her course that's starting. So today's on the 18th is the last day that one can register. I happen to register. It is a time for introspection, which is very close to this conversation that we're going to continue. And that's what I wanted to bring that up. And the reason I'm joining it is because I am really wanting to explore the why of how I progress further. I've got ideas about Talk Cosmos and in my own personal, we've made a lot of changes from the past. And it seems like this conversation we're having right now on cosmic collaboration with Susie Wright and Amanda Pierce and myself, Sue Minahan, is appropriate for the entire nation. It is our nation. We are in this balsamic point of a mental energy that is really illustrated through other cycles that's coming at us from many angles. And that is what life does. We know that anyway. A change happens on many levels. So anyway, I wanted to give a plug. So do go, how it relates and then introduce. That would be through Mythic Skies. So if anybody wants to do that. But back to our conversation, which is the oneness of finding our internal reflection. Yes, Susie. Are you just...
No, I'm just agreeing. I'm right there with you. Well, I found this interesting thing. If you don't mind, this is in.
Oh, thank you. Love it.
I love Maria K. Sims wrote a book called Moontide Soul Passages, and I absolutely love this book. It's one of my books that has like no spine left because I have read it so much. I love it. But she talks about the balsamic phase by progression, which is where we are, where we're coming to. Did we find the date for that, by the way? Was that
it was October. It will be October 12th, 2022. And I do have it. I could pull it up, but that's when it will.
I was just curious. But as we deepen into the balsamic phase by progression, this is how she describes, if you don't mind me just reading this.
Of course. And just mention the book's name again, please.
Yes, it's Moontide Soul Passages by Maria K. Sims.
Moontide Soul Passages.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Moontide's Soul Passages.
And by again, I'm sorry,
Maria K. Sims.
Okay.
And she says, when you enter the period of the balsamic phase by progression, during the years you pass through the balsamic phase, you'll be finishing and letting go of things in your life, and quite likely experimenting with various new things as well. This is a time of transition similar to Samhain myths and to the last falling leaves that give way to the onset of winter. Transition through death that is change. I'm going to skip down a little bit here. Some aspect of you that has been the core of your identity may have lost its luster and interest to the point that you're releasing it. The seed of what one day will become a highly significant new identity may already be known to you at some level of consciousness, and its emergence is just a short way down a crossroad path. You may not have consciously realized its potential yet, or even if it's something you've already begun, you've not yet defined its importance or decided on the path as your future direction. if that doesn't sum up where we are sitting in this
That's
moment,
so perfect.
it's
Yeah.
we don't know where we're going. We don't know. We're so still in the dark, but we know we're going somewhere. We know everything is changing. It
Yeah.
is such a perfect description.
And so fitting with the Pluto return that's coming up for the US as well. You know,
Oh my
it's like these
gosh.
things just kind of layer onto each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So it's I posted something the other day just on my Facebook page. It was just a big long thing, but it basically the short version of it is, I don't know the answers. Don't ask me for the answers.
Well,
Well,
and we're in the balsamic phase. So it's that Pisces energy. So it's like, let's just go with the flow. It's all we can really do, and to flow with it and release what we can as it comes up.
Mm-hmm.
and really listening to each of these code words that you're each speaking, to me, I hear the universe trying to affect, or I'm not trying to affect, but we're relating to the universe. And I'm thinking right off the bat about not knowing, because Pluto, as you were mentioning with Amanda here, is in Capricorn, and Capricorn wants to know. Capricorn is that authority that builds its life to be able to build something. And I remember Laura Nalbandian, who's a great astrologer and also instrumental in the Northwest, has a conference, but also very much on an international level too, increasingly. And I took a class, and she said, and she's a Capricorn, that it's a huge growth process for a Capricorn. And so this is my long story about this, to say, I don't know. Because usually it's the go-to, like in a family, the Capricorn taking responsibility, being accountable, and all these parts that are so important for that Capricornian archetype, to suddenly say, I don't know, is opening up. So it's very important that we don't. And along with that, wouldn't it be natural, of course, as we had about your shower experience, that we were thinking that Neptune right now is in Pisces, which is a long 13, 14-year transit in its own sign of the unknown, of everything that is dissolving. So it's a natural time. It's very important, I think, and for each of us to. And the last thought I have to tie this in for us to talk about is, if we're in balsamic and it's a reflection and we're going internal in order to garner what we have learned and what we have sprouted on any level, and therefore to begin to fathom those new little, because a lot of bulbs will rebuild another, they develop a new growth, like whether it's a cactus and it gets a new little baby, like I have an aloe vera or a daffodil, it brings many plants will replicate themselves in that process. So we have a new seed happening, is what I'm getting at, to go back, is that this internal process is so important. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's so much outward, with the energy that we have with these squares and the struggles that people are having, just outwardly, it's really making it. I don't know. That's not really, because planets don't make us do anything, but I just feel it's adding to the difficulty of being able to be retrospective and introspective. It's just there's so. I think that's to me. That is what the factions are, is those that are willing to be introspective versus those that are not, or willing or unable, to
That's
be.
interesting.
And I think that's a lot.
Yeah.
We're at the core of the conflict. The very,
Well,
very
isn't, going back, and Amanda, you had mentioned about, I'm tying the two of you guys together, of course, and that is that Pluto, back to Pluto in Capricorn, the last big, we had that stellium just a year ago in 2020, in January, of Pluto for the next 38 years with Saturn, and there was like, I was going to say 10, but there weren't. There were like 7 planets in Capricorn, or 6. It was a lot. But now it's still Pluto in Capricorn, which is our transformational. It wants soul growth. It wants us to purge what isn't that the same idea, that idea that get rid of that skin, whether it's a snake skin, an eggshell, whatever it is, it's binding, become that butterfly, the whole idea of transformation. And yeah, you know what?
Well, and can I
go ahead?
Can we go circle back to the Pluto in Capricorn? It's like it's breaking down that structure or societal structure, and it's breaking down this this hierarchy we have where there's no longer one authority that we go to for information and truth. That coupled with Neptune in Pisces, which there's just, it's hard to tell what the truth is. I feel like that is a big part as well as in terms of what are we willing to believe? And there's no one place that people are going anymore. There's so much information out there, and it's hard to tell what the truth is, and it's splitting people.
And the moon, right? Isn't it in the third?
Yes. Third house of communication.
So we have lost our. Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so.
Yeah. Well,
and the moon in the third as well. It's like, it's for the U.S. It's so important for us to have freedom of speech. Like that's just so like an emotional need for us as a country.
And our neighbors, its environment, it's our the cities, the counties, these different layers of judicial order and rules and everything, where it's a total renegotiation. I suddenly thought of something though. I remember from an earlier conversation, because music, we have a lot of emphasis in music. Pisces and Taurus and just astrologically relate so strongly to music. Uranus, just astrologically, if we're grounding it in, Uranus is in Taurus for the next 5 years, and Pisces is going to be for the next 6 years or 4 or 5 years old too in Pisces. And so, and right now, Jupiter, the expansion is still in Pisces and will come back to finish its cycle as of New Year's Eve, something just prior to that. Meaning, Susie, you had mentioned about, because I'm thinking we don't know. It's right. We don't know the truth, and we need a new way of connecting to each other and talking. And I remember we all have our favorite music from when we were in our teens and 20s. It seems like through the 20s is like your music. It's like, wow, I loved it. And I love music to begin with, but somehow it resonates, and you learn what people are talking about through music. At least in the 70s, there was a lot of music that made so much sense. It was like, or 60s, it was like, yeah, that's what they're thinking, and that's what I'm thinking, and that's what, because it connotes beyond. It's part of that unknown factor, the poetry. So,
well, it's very Neptunian, because somebody might write a song about their cat, but everybody in the world thinks it's about their girlfriend or their boyfriend, or, that's like legit. We don't, when you find out where these songs came from, you're like, oh, wow, my life is over now. I just I always thought that was about love, or, but yeah, so it is, inherently Neptunian, obviously, but
so it could be a bridge, is what I'm getting to, because it could be a new connection to kind of get through that, because you had asked or it might be world music, because we do go back to who is this group of, like, taking this in, thinking, breaking down social structure, not having the authority, because listening, that's the other thing, really listening maybe to other people in the other parts of the world, or right within our own country here, listening to different groups that are banding together, that are trying to speak.
Well, think about what's. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
No, go ahead, I'll chime in after.
Podcasts are huge now. People want to hear people talking, right? But that's such a new, relatively new form, or it's gaining such popularity. And independent music, that's what we were talking about before. Was independent artists are, they're they're eliminating all the middleman, of the big corporate conglomerate record companies.
That Pluto and
They're
Capricorn breaking it down. Yeah.
breaking it down.
Yeah.
Third house has to do with all that stuff. It's our information as a country, how we get our information, radio, TV. It's the post office is ruled by the third house.
Media, yes.
The internet, everything. So we're breaking it all down. Also schools and Board of Education. Look what's going on with
boy, are they having a tough time of it. I just feel for parents and the kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just going to mention just about the Aquarius, when it's an integrated archetype, it's pulling in that heart from Leo because it's on that Leo Aquarius axis. So it's got to integrate both sides of the continuum. And so that heart is part of that, that real humanitarian quality that Aquarius brings, where it just really wants to help the world and find the best for everybody.
And you would know you are a Leo. And I remember, yes, we had a wonderful podcast. I think it was 2018, maybe 19, maybe 18, where you were talking about Leo. So for any that go back, because we do keep all the archives, we were podcast before 19 and we're still a podcast. Susie, yes. If I didn't break your inspiration of heart and Leo, well, it is true. I think that is Aquarius that's a very important factor. It is a mental sign. It's an air sign, and it can get so caught up in how the group that it can think of how to elevate. And I think with air signs, get practical and rationalize and whatnot. There's part of that in their abstraction, away from the heart of that's really the feeling, the caring, the connection.
Yeah.
So
and that's really when we get into the shadow Aquarius, when we're just so cut off from the emotion, which is one of the challenges for an Aquarius moon. It's not a natural placement for the moon to be an Aquarius.
Well, it's hard. It's hard to be one for all and yet still one for one. It's very challenging. I understand that.
And Sue, like you were saying earlier, it's an Aquarius moon is a trauma signature. And what I have often seen in charts is that it's not that people with Aquarius moons are unfeeling or don't have emotions. It's that they have other indicators in the chart that show that they are so extremely sensitive. And the moon being in an Aquarius is a sign that there was a need to really just fully detach from the emotions in order to kind of keep going and surviving.
Or objectify, yes, because detach is like not engaged. So because it can get so personal, the moon, you're right, that it becomes all encompassing, and you have to process in a moon. That's this whole 8 phase, and sometimes there's 12 that are spoken about, because it's a developmental process and it's not always a success from the beginning. And from a moon perspective, there's no end to processing. I mean, potentially it's a very individualistic thing. Each plant has its own timing, but when we come to people and societies, there's all these different layers, as we mentioned, and factors. So yes, it's understandable. So now is a good time to reflect on who's on the team and what is the team, and to embrace the viewpoints that can help build it from another angle. Because, we are a much bigger nation than we were back in 1776. It was 13 colonies at best. And it was on one side of the states. I don't know, not maybe as big as Europe, but we are a whole lot bigger now with a whole lot more development.
Yeah. I don't know how we've done it as long as we have. This reminds me so much, though, too. Something else I wanted to just add to the mix is something to consider. Brene Brown talks about the group and how, connecting in a group, there's always that concern or that danger that forming too tight-knit a group eliminates other people, and keeping that in mind.
Yeah.
So, when we get inclusive, but only with people who think like us or who act like us or whatever, we're consistently excluding.
Yeah, that's such a dance for Aquarius too, because
It
it's
is.
so like the more you try to include, there is some kind of fallout to it. And
I was gonna say, so what's the answer? Don't include, allow, maybe,
Yeah, and
I
maybe
got it. I got it.
just that. Sorry. Okay, go ahead, Sue. You
I
got
was
it.
going to say, I think so, because I'm always remembering with any sign, there is that grand cross. And in this case, we're talking fixed. So yeah, it has a polarity of Leo, but it also has Scorpio and Taurus, which are so different, that are like that tension, like we were talking about the first quarter and the last quarter of a square of that 90 degrees that's saying, let's resolve this, and sometimes it can be a battle, but usually, hopefully, that battle, many times it does, as we had said, sometimes it brings something positive, even though through maybe a destructive form, we make lemonade out of lemons, right? But what I'm getting at is that they are water and earth based, it's a whole different structure.
Taurus and Scorpio, you mean?
Yes. And right now, of course, we have those energies. There's always those energies, but Uranus is in Taurus. And of course, it does bring in the polarity of Scorpio. But what I'm getting at is that tying in with what you guys were saying, like the limitation of the group, because there are other factors of making a group. And I think going back to the soul process of who we are, what are the values? That's what Uranus wants in Venus. What are our values? Which can get to the heart, and it can, it all ties in different angles.
Well, and what I wanted to say was that maybe the answer to that issue around inclusivity and exclusion is with Aquarius is just to always never to rest on your laurels with it, because it's a fixed sign. It wants to like say, okay, this is where we're at, and never move again. And that's just not going to help the process. And so continuing to move towards that innovation that Aquarius is so good at, and feeling into that, and kind of just allowing yourself to evolve. And I think that's part of what Uranus and Taurus is doing for Aquarius right now as well, with the square.
Yeah, and feeling, really, it is true. Aquarius, everybody has feeling. Aquarius certainly has a lot of feeling. They just multiply it sometimes by the whole group. And so it is a matter of coming back in and going through those feelings. It's a matter of acceptance and surrender, all this that goes into other energies here, in order to see the truth, to see the authenticity. I know, that's what I'm hoping with this class I'm going to do with Laura Tads. And we have a few minutes. Oh, next week will be the Moonbeam team.
1 minute.
We'll be talking. And I am with, right now, Cosmic Collaboration. And I have Amanda Pierce of Seattle and Susie Wright, Kara Wright of Nashville, Tennessee. I'm in Hawaii over here. And go to Talk Cosmos. Check out everybody's websites if you want to connect. We have on sites, and you can subscribe and keep connected when we keep returning. So this has been wonderful. Who is our family? Maybe music will show us the way. And to remember, it is that inclusiveness. We have something to hear and listen to each other.
Yeah. Any final thoughts about Aquarius or Aquarius moon from anyone?
It's brilliant.
There's that potential for brilliance with Aquarius, and that's definitely one of the higher aspects of it.
If we go back to the United States with Benjamin Franklin, the great, ambassador to France, and with the whole declaration, and he had the kite, and he learned about electricity. Well, what did electricity do? It opened up the world. It showed everything. Do we have a good memory or not? Then it shuts it off. Like, what did we see? We'll have to get
Yes.
past the rumors of what we saw. Yeah.
We're ripe for more innovation in the States right now.
Yeah, there are seeds. I love it.
Awesome. This has been lovely. Thank you, ladies.
Yes. Thank
Yeah.
you both. Love
Bye,
chatting
thank
with you.
Nathan.
And we love our audience. Thank you. And Nathan.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.